Welcome to Talking Industrial Automation, a podcast where you get to know the people who make modern industrial automation possible. You will get to hear from CSIA system integrators and industry partners to get a better understanding of how they help their clients solve process challenges and how they've earned success in their careers. Along the way, we will touch on system integration best practices, technology, trends, and challenges. Whether you are a manufacturer, end user, supplier, or system integrator, you will enjoy the insights these industry professionals bring to this podcast. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Lisa Richter, the host of Talking Industrial Automation, a podcast where you get to know the people who make modern industrial automation and processing possible. In today's episode, we're talking industrial automation with Guru Thakkar, who is Director of Engineering at Inflection Point in Neptune, New Jersey. Guru has more than 20 years of experience in industrial automation and process control. He has led automation initiatives across pharmaceutical and life sciences manufacturing, utilities, food and beverage, and building automation with a strong focus on reliability, compliance, and lifecycle performance. Guru advocates for disciplined front-end engineering, standardization, and professional excellence in system integration. In his current role as Director of Engineering, his primary responsibilities include delivering timely solutions with the latest technology platforms and driving strategic initiatives within the A&C department for continuous improvements and new offerings. Guru's expertise and leadership contribute significantly to the company's success in the process industry. Guru, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Lisa. Happy to join and nice to be here.
Let's start from the beginning of your career story. How did you find yourself in this industry?
Well, I did my bachelor's in engineering with a focus in mechatronics, which was somewhat of a new stream back then. Mine was the second batch at the college where I attended, and it was very interesting. Since the very first time I visited the college and then learned about the program, I had never heard of it before that visit, but it was very intriguing and very interesting. Seemed different than others, as well as cutting edge at the time, at least. And during that program, I was introduced to automation directly, indirectly. We learned a bit about mechanical engineering, computer science, electronics, along with robotics and introduction to PLCs as well. Actually, I remember in one of those second last semesters, I did a workshop myself on PLCs so other students can learn a little bit too, which was nice. It was my first introduction to this area of business, and it's always been very, very interesting. And when I got to my master's, I did it with a focus in intelligent systems, which was, kind of my journey continuing into automation and intelligent systems. And then a natural transition was to be working for an integrator, which I started with a very small integration company, and then moved to Inflection Point, and I've been with Inflection Point for about 17 years now.
How do you describe to non-technical people what it is that you do?
Um, it is kind of tricky when it comes to describing this to non-technical people. When I meet socially with friends and others, I normally describe that I work with industrial automation systems and not put too much too much detail into it usually. However, when people start asking more questions, when they dig into it more, I would tell them that, we deal with all sorts of different process systems and machineries and equipment in industrial environment. And if you have to think about it in layman's terms, I would say we put the brain into all these systems and make it work together very well, and that involves lots of computers and programming and industrial controllers, as well as dealing with sensors and actuators and things of that nature that make the whole system work together. Kind of how I put it for people who do not have industrial background.
Let's talk a little bit about Inflection Point. Tell me a little bit of its backstory, how it began, and how it's evolved over the years.
Sure. The company was founded back in 1983 by a small group of people, but definitely very capable engineers, visionaries, and they really had good background and capabilities to scale the company. Our CEO Kevin Hannigan and a bunch of other people have been around for a long time. I myself have been around with the company for about 17 years now, and the company has since day one been focused on you know having standards and best practices followed thoroughly, whether it's at a small scale, small project, or a very large project. We are very, very stringent about following best practices and standards.
Yeah, so if I've got my numbers correct here, you went from 40 people about 5 years ago to over 100 today. That's more than doubling, obviously. Not that great at
That
math,
is
but I could do that.
that is
Um,
correct. We were about 40 just about in late 2021, and we are over 100 now. So we've definitely gone through some tremendous amount of growth, and it's been great, being part of this scale up process, I would say. And not only the growth, we have, along with that, of course, to enable that growth, we have increased our offerings. If you think about the standard Purdue model, I'm going to call it in a classic way. We deal with layer 0 to 4, everything in between, just not the ERP at level 5. So
yeah, and so was that growth organic or was that through acquiring another company or how did you manage to double that
good,
employees?
good, good question. Most of that growth was organic growth, and that's because we have not only increased our offering by adding cybersecurity, networking, and more of the computing and infrastructure parts of the business of integration. We have also a great support team that we have established, a dedicated set of people that are only and only dedicated to support, providing customer support for systems that we may have implemented, others may have implemented, but systems that are out there and need support on a day-to-day basis. So with all that and an increased number of engineers, we have grown to a number of over 100. Recently, very recently, late last year, Q4, we went through an acquisition of a smaller group of people, a company called Process Innovation. And that group of people, now known as Industrial Data System Group, within Inflection Point. They are now responsible for delivering data solutions, mainly focused on Aviva Pi and Pi-based historian and everything that goes with it. However, not limited to that.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've got a pretty diverse portfolio. Is there any sort of like something that unifies or is the common thread in all those projects?
Yes, in fact, that is what gives us an edge in a way. The fact that we can deal with everything from infrastructure level items, when you think of a project, all the way up to the PLC programming and the control panels and everything that goes with it, including a connection all the way to the enterprise system. That's what sets us apart because not a whole lot of integrator can operate at that level from top to bottom.
Yeah, just tell me a little bit more about what makes you unique and maybe give me an example of a project.
So, what makes us unique is, again, our broad technical capabilities, from all the way from sensors and controls and networking and cybersecurity to enterprise integration. Like I was mentioning, we deal with different layers, which is not unique to a lot of institutions or a lot of organizations. I would say about projects is our approach is usually focusing very well on front end design. What we do is before even design, we understand the customer's requirement, what they need, what they are looking for, what their goals are appropriately before we dive into the design and come up with a solution. And when I say solution or design, a good portion of it actually happens very early on at the front end when we are even proposing or preparing a proposal. It is not only once we get the project is when we design. The initial architecting actually happens beforehand, and if that's not set right, you're setting a wrong precedence, and it will be going in a going down like a wrong spiral, right? So we do emphasize on early design, getting it right, and then taking that approach to make sure that everything else that follows through is very smooth and easy to implement.
Yeah, I'm often reminded of that I think it was Henry Ford who said if we ask people what they want, they would say a faster horse, and really what they need is a car. I think about that a lot.
That is very true, and that happens a lot. And that's why when I mentioned not only knowing the requirement, but also knowing their goals is
Yeah.
very important. Because when you ask for requirement, it is possible that somebody would bring something up that is based on their knowledge and their thoughts. However, being in the business ourselves as integrators, we may have a different solution in mind, and we do often present different solution to customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you a question. If you are a system integrator, would you like to talk to other system integrators about the challenges you're facing? If so, I have good news for you because that's exactly what happens at the CSIA conference. This is where SIs share their knowledge with other SIs. This is the only event in the world where you'll get peer driven strategies on everything from AI adoption to team retention and thriving in uncertain times, all from SI owners and executives who've been in your shoes. This year also features two can't miss workshops: the CSIA Marketing Workshop, where SI marketers share real stories and real results, and the CSIA Best Practices Workshop, which is packed with insights to optimize your operations and deliver exceptional results. Plus, you'll hear from Dan Heath, #1 New York Times bestselling author, on his latest book, Reset: How to Change What's Not Working. Whether you are looking to sharpen your skills, expand your network, or stay ahead of industry trends, the CSIA 2026 conference, May 4th through 8th in Baltimore, is the place to be for you and your team. Explore it all at www.controlsys.org/2026 conference. See you in Baltimore. So, talking about your customers, what are some of the challenges they're facing?
Um, Challenges nowadays are, a lot of these projects sometimes that come up with or start with buzzwords in the industry. Customers get attracted to it, and sometimes they want to just dive into it. However, the approach we take is again to understand what the requirements are, what the end looks like, and with that in mind, we try to come up with a solution that is tailored to their needs versus going through and just bringing up a generic solution and thinking that it will fit everybody. It may be possible, but not in all cases. As far as challenging projects, there has been plenty. We have projects that were very, very fast paced, like Operation Warp Speed project that we were involved with during COVID. And a lot of times I still remember of those days and think like how many hours we used to work during the day. However, it was for a greater cause, and we definitely are proud that we were part of it. It was a large size project with many multiple panels on that particular site. We took care of process control system, we took care of environmental monitoring system, as well as the building automation system, which was done with PLC based system. Not so common, but it's becoming more popular with mission critical systems. What I would like to mention there is that with that reduced time scale, we had to get creative, and we had to come up with ways to be able to implement and deploy these projects at a rapid scale. And we got the glimpse of the government operates when there is a pandemic kind of situation, and it was great to see it closely. We had to come up with ways where we developed some internal tools and some tricks and scripting and whatnot to come up with ways to reduce our development time, to reduce our documentation time, and that really helped and is still helping our new projects nowadays.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about that because obviously everything was happening so quickly. Did you even get clear direction or clear specs, or was it more like, get me some of that, whatever? like,
Actually, not really. So glad you brought that up. That still reminds me of that OWS Operation Warp Speed project that we worked on. I remember sitting down 3.5 days on a Thanksgiving weekend, going through and looking through drawings, trying to figure out and list out all the instruments, control valves, and whatnot that we would need for that project. And that is because we were starting with about 45% design drawing, and the project was something that was being developed and built on the fly to some extent, of course, not entirely. However, that effort of sitting down and focusing for 3.5 days over a long weekend, that still is in my memory. I would never forget that. And the reason being, again, the upfront attention to details that we had to pay, that pays off a lot later in the project. And that's really what I want to emphasize on. That is something that is very valuable. Just want to put it out there for everybody that deals with our kind of projects, end user or integrators.
yeah, so you were developing the systems to produce the vaccine. Is that what you were working on?
It was for a fill line and everything else that goes with it to support it, correct?
I mean, I guess that's really rewarding work, and also, if you had any free floating anxiety, that was a place to pour all that energy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes,
The rest of us
absolutely.
just doing jigsaw puzzles and trying not to drink too much wine. Okay, so let's talk about your repeat business. How much of it is repeat, and do customers come back? Hopefully not
Uh,
for another pandemic, but in other ways.
a good amount of our business is repeat business, mainly for two reasons, I would say. One is the fact that we now have a great support team and a good support business that we have set up, which means, we're continuing to support plants and facilities year after year, and for some customers, multiple sites. The other item is the fact that we have a good amount of focus on quality and deliverables and ensuring that the great outcome is we pay attention to that. And to have the great outcome, we do put in a lot of effort into upfront testing. So as soon as we are done with design and development, we go into and stage as much of the system as we can in our environment here at the office, and then we test it out as much as possible in simulation environment, of course. The network setup and so on, everything gets tested as much as we can. What that means is when we are on site and actually deploying, the amount of testing is reduced, amount of troubleshooting is reduced, and amount of pain that people go through trying to commission a system that may not be fully vetted and tested is reduced quite a bit. Also means that when customer is looking over our shoulder, we're not fumbling and trying to figure things out. We are better prepared when we go out for startup, and that basically simply means that we're going to be coming out of the startup much faster, and the customer gets to use the plant and take the project through the rest of the commissioning process faster.
I imagine the repeat business is part of why you were able to scale and double over the past 5 years. As they gain trust with you, then they're like more likely to give you more and more projects and work, and just becomes a self-fulfilling, not really prophecy, but you know what I mean.
That is true. You could say it kind of becomes like a snowball effect, just to say. Basically, once we get started with a customer, once we gain their trust, that's the key. If we do a good job, they are going to trust you. If we provide the right solution, if we provide the right advice that when they need it, advice, that is what makes the difference, and that's what keeps us in front of them, keeps us at the top of their list. And even though sometimes they're competitive, it's we do have a good rapport with them where we can understand and their needs and requirement better than others, and because of that, we will come up with the right solution and keep doing business with them. There are customers where we started with one site, and a year or two later, we would be doing another site or expansion, and then there turns into 5 sites and so on. And that is something what we are always looking for. We want to build good trust from our customer, and we want to be certain that they always can lean on us for anything new, anything that they're doing with their systems.
What are some of the trends that you're seeing in industrial automation?
Lots of things are changing. Of course, technology in general is changing very fast. What I'm seeing lately is, besides the changing technology, which we of course we keep up with, and we keep coming up with solutions that are tailored to customer requirement, as well as keeping up with the latest technology, and find a balance in between as well, because there are sometimes other aspects like budget and timeline and other things that we would have to keep in mind. One thing that we are seeing is increasingly, most of the customers are now asking for turnkey solutions, and people that can handle more or larger portions of the project, where they do not have to go to too many different people and manage all these vendors themselves. And the reason why it works for us is because, like as mentioned before, we can deal with all the way from sensors and instruments to connections to ERP system when it comes to manufacturing, automation, and control. And that also means what we call the manufacturing IT side of business, or nowadays known as digital transformation, and that journey. And we can help the customer guide through that process and work with them closely to be able to understand and work with their needs carefully. Something that I've noticed in pharma industry, particularly life sciences and pharma, a lot of equipment are being purchased as single-use equipment, and what becomes challenging is for customers to have a properly integrated environment or train or process equipment where all these things are tied together appropriately, where they can get data out of these systems that are sort of purchased as islands of automation, but there still has to be something that ties all of these together. And we understand that very well, and we've dealt with it, and that helps us guide our customers to be able to deal with these things very well.
I imagine if your world is like my world, it's infested with AI. AI this, AI that, and everybody's like feeling a little bit like panicking, like they're falling behind, whether that's true or not. Are your customers feeling that? And then are they bringing that anxiety to you, or how are you handling those discussions?
So there's definitely a lot of interest in AI and AI using AI-based technology directly or indirectly with production systems. Directly using it on production system is still something where you have to be ultra careful. I wouldn't say it's not possible. I've definitely seen examples where it has been made possible, and again, as long as you provide the right boundaries and parameters, it will work fine. But you still have to be ultra careful about managing the risks there. What happens with customers that bring up the use of AI a lot of times is it's not that you can just take any plan, use any available data, and absolutely use AI to be able to do something that would be very meaningful. Again, you have to start with the end goals in mind. Figure out what would be the best approach to get there using the newer AI-based tools. That may be something that is, you use for better efficiency of your equipment, for better quality, better outcome of your entire process. Even during the project lifecycle early on, you can use it for design and development as well as testing. Again, you have to be very careful about how you use it, determine the use case very well first, define it, and then take the approach of risk management when you do use AI.
Yeah, it's a pretty broad term, whether if you're talking about machine learning or what I'm seeing now on LinkedIn is a lot of people are, I don't know, putting a prompt into AI to get like a caricature of themselves, and then they're
Yes.
posting it on LinkedIn. And there was one person who had a hand that was obviously like not like a real hand, like there was thumbs sticking out the wrong way, and I'm like, I'm not sure, not sure really that's all that helpful at this point, but
Yeah, so what happens there is, and but that's a funny example for sure, and I've seen plenty of that. I'm sure everybody does. But what I would like to point out there is the fact that using large language model AI, where you're interacting it's the nice piece where you can actually interact with natural language. However, the domain knowledge matters a lot there. The domain knowledge is something where you provide feedback to AI and say, no, this is not right, this is how it should be instead, and
yeah,
you close the loop and provide that expertise where AI would understand that it may or may not be always correct. and
yeah,
and I've seen plenty of cases trying things out myself where you would have to correct it 3 times, 4 times,
yeah.
sometimes even more, because sometimes it seems like it's stubborn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll always
uh,
say, "Could you please check your work?" And then it'll be like, "Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I see I did blah, 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 blah." Yeah. We all know the stranglehold the talent shortage has on business, which means this is no time to trifle when it comes to staying competitive in the thunderdome that is the labor market. That's where the CSIA Salary and Benefits Survey comes in. This benchmarking resource provides comprehensive compensation information for dozens of SI industry job titles. It also provides insights into benefits like retirement programs, medical benefits, PTO, bonuses, and more to provide you with a holistic picture. You'll also get high level HR analytics like industry turnover rates and recruiting sources. Here's how it works: you contact CSI to let us know you want to participate. You pay your invoice, and then you have until the end of February to enter your data. The final report will be available soon after, mid March, but only to CSIA members who input their data. And while the salary survey provides valuable insight into how your talent cost structure compares to others, CSIA's Pulse program carries this benefit further by providing a quarterly look at how efficiently you are deploying your team. benchmark your operation against your peers to focus on efforts on the areas that will deliver the most value. To learn more, visit www.controlsys.org/benchmarking. Get armed with the data you need to stay competitive today. So let's talk about your company. What's the smartest decision your company's made recently?
I would say, we've definitely gone through a lot of growth. So I would say the examples are probably, a long list. I would say recently we went through and internally restructured a bit, where we have started aligning group of people to industry verticals, and what that means is they can have a little better focus. Meaning they can have a more focused effort instead of switching tasks and groups from project to project. If they happen to work on multiple projects, it is still easier and more manageable. The context switching doesn't take a toll on them. And also the fact that different industries demand different level of documentation, especially. Of course, a lot of times when you're dealing with regulated industry, pharma and GMP, practices that you have to follow or demand a lot of documentation. The approaches are changing there as well with CSA. However, it is still a fact that other industries definitely do not need as detailed level of documentation, especially when it comes to documented testing. I would say it could be done in a way where it's not so taxing or time consuming. And with that in mind, the restructuring that we have done is helping a bit because people that are involved with different industry verticals now understand what they're supposed to deliver in a better way and a more consistent way, and then they can deliver better.
Yeah. So switching topics a little bit, let's talk about Inflection Point and CSIA and why Inflection Point decided to join CSIA.
So CSIA not only is focused on technical items, right? There's a lot of material out there available just for the technical part of it. But then, how do you deliver a better outcome or better project to the customer? And that's where CSIA helps. CSIA brings guidelines that make companies stable. CSIA brings guidelines that provide non-technical aspects that CSIA brings guidelines that also touch the non-technical aspect and things like financial management and managing people and ensuring that all those are solid and sound as far as the company is concerned. And then what that means is for an end user when they're dealing with a company that follows CSI guideline, the end user can trust that this is a company that pays attention to the non-technical aspects of the business as well, and they are coming with a sound background and solid foundation.
Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody who might be considering a career in this industry?
I would say, focus on fundamentals and then seek hands-on experience, and then grow from there. Of course, technical things are not the only things. Depends on any person's career aspirations and stuff. There are non-technical things that they should pay attention to as well. Managing people, managing finances, and budget for a project, for example, or simply dealing with people and so on. A lot of those aspects matter. For anybody that is new to this area, I would say that if they start with a smaller company or a smaller group of people where they have to wear many hats and deal with a lot of different aspects of the project, I think that's a very good way to start, and that is because they get to learn a lot. They get to learn a lot of different aspects of the project, not only just the technical management or programming or focused on just the control panel design or hardware, or just focused on software and so on. What that means is it gives you better fundamentals for the whole project lifecycle. It gives you better fundamentals for to be able to design better systems in future. That's an edge that is going to accelerate people's career.
Did you say safely deal with people? Is that what you said?
No, no. Did I say safely? I don't think so. At least I didn't mean that.
I think like detonating a bomb, just be very gentle. Okay, so what is one misconception people have about system integrators?
A lot of people think that system integrators are just coding things, and a lot of times they expect that we show up on site, especially during startup, flip a switch, and everything just
Mm.
works. It is not that simple, and it is never going to be that simple. However, what I would like to bring up is that it involves a lot. It involves understanding customers' operation. It involves managing risk. It involves good, sound engineering decision and coming up with the solutions that are going to stick and solutions that are going to be scalable. Think about expansion. Think about future needs and design accordingly and implement systems accordingly. That really matters a lot. A lot of times people think that integrators' jobs are easy, but actually we deal with a lot of different aspects of, we have to know your sensors and instrumentation well, you have to know your programming well, you have to know your computing environment well, how you reliably manage and keep your system secure. That matters a lot too. So that's kind of why, as a company, we have invested time and have a group of people that can deal with these different layers of every system.
What are you excited about in terms of the future of system integration?
Well, it's a role that is ever expanding. So with the complexity added, with the newer technologies and the intelligence being added to the system, it makes it more interesting. The things that we learn, all those concepts are becoming even better, and some of these things that we used to dream of are now becoming reality. So I'm looking for the future where we're implementing the latest and best technologies out there, ever evolving landscape out there of technology, and it is really a great future where we'll be able to deal with things that are never gonna get boring.
Okay, so final question. What advice would you give your younger self just getting started?
That is interesting. Well, if I was starting new in this particular area, as an integrator, I would say it would have been nice to have a little more formal education that I would have preferred. Now that is not as common yet. However, there are now courses that are available at the university level that are kind of more focused on it. I got a chance of dealing with that, when I went through my mechatronics program. However, it is becoming more and more common. And people that maybe are interested in this kind of business early on, I would say, our students, rather, I should say, interested in this kind of career, they can definitely look into those kind of courses that are focused on this effort. And coming out of it is definitely going to make it easier for them to get into this and be able to get on up to the speed very fast.
So never stop learning.
Absolutely. Never. It's a lifelong process.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Talking Industrial Automation. If you're interested in learning more about Guru or Inflection Point, you can find them on the CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange at www.csiexchange.com. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Guru, for joining me today.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for having me. And it's great to be part of this podcast and looking forward to more.
If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also really help the show by leaving a review and sharing with colleagues. We're all just slaves to the logarithm now, so I gotta ask. Thanks for listening to the Talking Industrial Automation podcast. Thanks also to bensound.com and Wistia for the music bumpers. Until next time.